Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast, where we serve and support leaders so you can serve and support your local church.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Olson. I have a really incredible guest today, and I'm so excited for you to hear from him and just hear all about the things that he's doing down in the southern part of the United States, down in Georgia. So I'm very excited to welcome Chris Brink. Chris, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be.
Well, thank you. The honor is also mine. I'm grateful to have you. So let's talk a little bit about you. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about where you're at, life, family, work, whatever you want to share, because you have a really unique business and ministry that I'm excited for people to hear about as well. So why don't you give people a snapshot?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for just offering that intro. So a little bit about me. My wife and I have been married for almost 13 years now. We have 3 little kids, 8, 6, and 4. Oldest is a girl, and then 2 younger boys. And my wife and I got married right at 21 and 20. We look back at pictures and we're like, what were our parents thinking letting us do that?
Yes.
Like at that age. I look at that same age group of people, and some are ready for it and some aren't, and I just can't even believe that we decided to do that. But it was the right decision for us.
Yes.
We absolutely love each other and love each other even more. And the years, that have gone by since, we have 3 amazing, beautiful children, and they're each kind of pursuing their own thing. Some of them are doing a little bit of a mixture of music and sports and things like that. And then our 4-year-old hasn't really gotten into anything just yet. We're trying to hold off on that as long as possible and keep the crazy away.
Yes.
Because schedules get nuts, as all of you, I'm sure, and you know very
Yes.
well. So back in 2014, prior to about that time, I had traveled full-time with this band called The Museum. We were signed to a label called Tooth and Nail, and then under that was BEC Recordings, and that's where we were signed to. And we were traveling, doing about 150 or 200 dates a year. Really great guys, enjoyed it for the time that I had. But once we were pregnant with our first, back in 2012, we just felt a desire from God to take me off the road into more localized form of employment, as opposed to traveling, just kind of doing the musician thing. But we didn't really know what that was. And so 2012 was just a year where it was a lot of transition, the first pregnancy for my wife, and then struggling with, what do I do? All I'd ever really done is music. My parents were musicians, taught music and still do. And so ministry and music were really all I knew. And so I was thinking, I could contact some churches, I could teach some lessons, I could, whatever. I had been to school to get a biblical studies degree, so I knew I could probably go pick up like a Bible teaching job at a Christian school, but I just didn't really feel led any one direction or the other. And towards the end of 2012, we just both felt like, all right, it's got to be done. Like we got to be done with the band, and God is just going to lead us in the next step, even if we don't know what that is quite yet. And so what that led to was, it wasn't a dark period. It was honestly very encouraging and life-giving, but it was testing. In the spring of 2013, as my wife is 6-7 months pregnant, I'm sitting at home without a gainful source of employment, seeing her go to work every day, and I'm just sitting here feeling like trash, because I'm watching her just feeling, back pain, the whole bit, and going to work faithfully, doing what she needs to do, and I just can't figure out what I need to do. And but in the middle of all that, about February, Christy and Nathan Knuckles are good friends of ours, and they were really helpful in this transitional kind of stage of our lives. And Christy's brother Eric, he's been an amazing encourager and mentor for me. And I was telling him a little bit about what was going on. He said, hey, let's meet. And we met at IHOP, of all places. Nothing super cool or amazing. We just got pancakes and eggs, and it was great. But he just God spoke directly through him in such an amazing way that, you look back on your life and you see these mile markers, and you always have those kind of Ebenezer's you can look back to that, man, God spoke so clearly through this person or did something amazing, Yeah. And in that hour that we were together, I was just kind of sharing them, hey, I think what I feel called to do is just start offering music lessons at my wife's little, hybrid school that she's teaching at. 100 kids go there. It's not going to be anything big. It's just going to be a stopgap to get me from where I am now to maybe the other side of this. And Eric just, he kind of stopped me in my tracks. He was like, Chris, I think this is going to be bigger than what you think it is. This is going to be something that is going to minister and equip and encourage students, the people who are taking these lessons, but also you're going to encourage and give musicians something consistent and something stable to count on. And this is going to be a business for you that you're going to just continue to build your lives on and continue to build. And at that point, it was just such a shock, just that he even saw any value or weight in what I was doing at the time.
Wow.
But it lit a fire in me, and I knew it was from the Lord. And went home and told my wife, and she was like, hey, that's awesome. I'm still a little skeptical because there's only 100 kids at this school. We'll see what happens. But she was excited that I had a fire, right, and that I was ready to go. And I don't know how long you want me to keep going on, because I've been going on for about 5 or 10 minutes now. But the story is just kind of a lengthy one, but it's so, man, I get into it and it feels like, it's just not that long ago. But so as we get into February, March of 2013, I start offering lessons, and the first month that I did, 2 people signed up. So it's like, all right, Eric, I'm gonna trust you and God here. This is 2, but we'll see where this goes. And I just kept coming in, being faithful, being diligent. I was playing with some bands and other artists at the time, so there was some supplemental income there. But I just kept offering the lessons and kept coming in. And so slowly but surely, 3 more signed up the next month, 5 signed up the next month. And by the summer, June, July, there were 20 or 30, kiddos that were coming to me every week for lessons, and it was beginning to start taking the shape of something that was bigger than just music lessons. It was more of a vision that God planted in me. Even when I was younger, like when I started playing music, my dad's a pastor. He was like, hey, you learn an instrument, you're going to get up on stage and you're playing. I don't, he didn't really care how well I felt about it. He was just like, this is what you're doing. You're going to serve, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
And there just weren't that many opportunities for kids to do that, outside of great leadership and coaching. And so I wanted to be that coach for these kids, to give them an ability to learn, but also an encourager, an equipper, a mentor, a coach to come alongside them and do that. And that's, and I think that was what kind of sparked the desire for people to come and take lessons with me. And then, as we grew, I knew I needed more coaches to come alongside me and do this. And so I hired this guy, Paul Whittinghill, who plays drums for the Passion Band. Melody Malone was another hire early on, who sings for the Passion Band. Zach Norman, who was involved in Passion for a while. And so slowly but surely, God was just building this team of people who were amazing, skilled people at what they do. Drummer, vocalist, singer, songwriter, guitar player, you name it. But they were also equally great, just people. And just had such a clear vision, calling from God to mentor, young future, even if they're not going to be worship leaders, just young future students and adults, and work hard to equip them. And so that's where we've been for the last 7 years. We opened up Root in 2014 and just have been growing ever since. We're looking at a few other planning of locations around the country right now. But God's just been so good to us to allow us to keep having this influence in students' lives.
Before we get to the rest of today's episode, I want to tell you about our exciting brand new launch, overflowresource.com. You guys, this website is such a labor of love, and I am so excited to share it with you. It's a subscription-based service created to serve the local church worship team. It provides topic-focused training and resources and tools for every single member of the worship team. We have everything from song resources to devotionals to training tools that are specific to your role. So no matter what you do on the team, you can gain from this website. The other thing that's really amazing is for premium members, we have the option for one-on-one training with me, options for community gatherings every month, and things like set list support and just other really unique things that I'm so excited to include in this website. So friends, please head to overflowresource.com. You can learn all about it. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us through the contact page on the website. You can find us on socials at Overflow Resource, and also, again, our website is overflowresource.com. All right, back to today's episode. That's just incredible. I love that so much. And I love how, even we were talking a little bit before we hit record, but I'm seeing this in your story now too, just the hand of God slowly, kind of guiding and turning and shifting. And it's just amazing how you can look back and see all of those pieces that he so carefully put together, carefully and intentionally. And I think that is such a beautiful thing for us as followers of Christ, to hear stories of other people who have had that experience in their lives too, because maybe there's people listening that for whatever reason they are in that place of searching, or maybe it is a really dark place where they're wondering, what am I even supposed to be doing? What am I called to? Or maybe they're in transition between churches, and that's difficult. Those changes are hard. But to be able to hear somebody's story like yours of how, yes, God was with me every step, and I didn't see it at the time, but you also, submitted yourself to mentorship with Eric, who, by the way, just is amazing. I've only met him a couple times, but I've heard him speak at a few different things through Worship Circle with Todd Fields and some of the retreats and stuff like that. And my goodness,
he's amazing.
Just a wealth of wisdom and knowledge.
Absolutely.
And yeah, my husband came with me to the Rest Retreat actually this just in October, and he was like, man, everybody was great, but that Eric Hill, it was so good. So anyway, but for you to submit yourself to mentorship and be willing to, then listen and hear, and because you trusted him and, his words, and then bring it before the Lord and say, okay, what do you want to do with this? And for people who are listening, maybe that's an encouragement for you to, submit yourself to mentorship. And that's what these kids are doing with Rooted. And I love Rooted because my daughter is a student, and we get to do it virtually through Zoom, because you guys are in Atlanta area, right?
Right.
Is that where? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we're a little bit north of Atlanta in a suburb called Alpharetta. And so that's where a majority of that's where all our in-person students obviously come from, and then some of the suburbs around that area. But then through some online resources that we've been able to begin to just include some people even from outside the Atlanta area in, live one-on-one kind of Zoom coaching, which has been amazing to just be a part of and get to, we'll have people from India, from African countries, from all over Australia, all over, who have a desire to learn to play worship music, and they, we're working with weird time differences, but we love to work it out, because they're just, I think as we were building Rooted, we kind of realized there's not a ton. There are other options and resources and more kind of digital resources, but in terms of the live one-on-one coaching aspects, there's just not as much out there like that. And we've loved getting to be a part of that in these students. And for your listeners and your following, I mean, absolutely, you guys, whether you're in a church of 100 or 100,000, God is just calling you to consistency and to saying yes to what he's asked you to do. And he's just asking you to do what you can do, right? And he's going to take that, and he's going to, move mountains from that. Your trust, your willingness just to follow him. It's massive. And I can't say it enough. Like you mentioned, having mentors and coaches in your life that you trust and you submit to them, but also the authority of God. Man, you don't have to lean on your own understanding of things to make things happen. You just submit and you keep saying yes. And I just want to encourage you. I mean, I know I was in a church of 100 people growing up, and I remember the struggles of people feeling like they need to do it all. And you can only say yes to what's in front of you. And God's so good to not put 15 steps in our path and light illuminate them all right away, right? He illuminates one and then the next and the next. And when you look back, you're like, whoa, what did God do? This is insane. And I just love that for your viewers and your listeners. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's so good. And I think it's good for all of us to hear that and be reminded of that, and be reminded that, wherever we're at in our journey, we can celebrate the victories or the wins or the good things, no matter how big they may seem. I think often it's like we kind of compare ourselves to those who are our peers, or they're over here on the side of us, and we think, oh, but their win was bigger than mine, and so my joy or my celebration, is a little less of a big deal. But it's like, no, we need to celebrate those. And even for you, I had to smile when you said the first month I had 2 kids sign up, and to maybe comparatively to what you were dreaming about, it didn't feel like a big win, but it's like, hey, I'm going to celebrate that this is a beginning.
Absolutely.
Like we just planted a seed, and we're still digging and planting more seeds and trying to cultivate this soil. But you planted something that grew and now, has just spread, and it's incredible. So I love that. Just tagging off to what you said about all of the mentorship and submitting ourselves and celebrating. And that's what you guys do through coaching. Absolutely. Too. I think the one-on-one thing is just so amazing because, like with my daughter, her coach can celebrate those small wins with her, whether it's like, you're doing great with the metronome or, like, wow, look at, she started guitar, I think it was in April, and, total green beginner, no experience at all. And the other day, she just played Great Are You, Lord on the guitar. And I was on the piano playing with her, and I'm like, it's your friend. I'm like getting so emotional. Like, look at you, you're playing a song.
It's so good.
So it's a beautiful thing to have people to walk alongside of you.
Yes. And just to go back, what you said about the comparison, oh my goodness. In the world that we live in, it's what is constantly coming at us through social media and through just browsing the internet and talking to more and being aware. I think the heightened awareness of what everybody's doing it can be a good thing, but it can also be a highly negative thing. I was reading one of John Maxwell's books the other day, and he was just kind of bringing this fact that I had never learned or knew before, that basically by the time you hit adolescence and into adulthood, you're hearing the word no like 30 times the amount that you're hearing the word yes. And what you mentioned about those little wins and those little yeses are so huge. Like for us, as we are building something, as we're saying yes, even when it was 2 people, it's hard to congratulate and celebrate yourself. Like we usually want other people to do that for us, but it's so good for us to get into the habit of not like overdoing it and being crazy with it, but celebrating the things that God has done and celebrating the wins, the little wins, because if we never do that, we're not going to keep doing the little increments, the little incremental pieces in our daily walks and our weekly walks that eventually lead to something amazing. And that's what we're trying to do with Rooted, like you mentioned. It's celebrating, hey, you played 4 measures on click, G, C, E minor, D. Like, that's amazing. If you look back 3 years later, you're like, that's nothing. But in the beginning, that's a huge piece. And so we have to be better. I'm very self-deprecating. I'm sure many of your listeners are the same way. And it's hard to want to be that because we're always told to look at what other people are doing, and we're always wanting to see our thing rise to the next level. But to get better about saying, man, that was really good, and to celebrate little victories. That's an amazing piece of advice that you mentioned there. I love that.
You've been listening to the Overflow Worship Podcast. If you enjoy our podcast, please take a moment and leave us a 5-star rating and a written review, which helps us reach more people. New episodes are released every other Monday. So until next time, thank you for listening.